Hello, it is John Binnie. I am driving from Dunbar to a place called Tayport, just next to Dundee in Scotland. This is a journey that will take me, over an hour, that's for sure. It'll take me about another hour and 30 minutes. And I'm just coming up to pass Haddington, or previously known as Hiddentune. At least that's one of the theories about where its name comes from. Today I'd like to chat to you about my experiences with the fifth dimension in a bit more detail, because it's a theme that is building in my client sessions, in the questions that you ask me. And also today I was guided to create, and I did create, a channeled video. It's about 40 minutes from my guides at Gaia about the fifth dimension, and then also including like the how to get to fifth dimensional Earth. And I've got Kevin the microphone right up next to my throat, so apologies for the various gulping noises that you will no doubt be hearing. It would be fun to try a live stream while I'm driving at some point. I'd really enjoy doing that. I'm not sure how safe it is to do it though, so I couldn't be meditating or anything at the same time. I don't think that would be a great idea. So my first experiences of the fifth dimension were, really quite magical. I would say every experience I have with the fifth dimension is very magical. And one of those experiences was just first of all becoming aware of the concept. So up until my awakening in November 2017, when I first meditated and started to see the creation of stars and planets and the energy that flows between them. Excuse me. It's funny. All these releases from your body are perfectly timed. And when I first experienced that awakening, I didn't have any real understanding of dimensions. I do remember reading Stephen Hawking's book. I've only read like 5 or 6 books in my life, right? So not many. And I remember reading his book back in what must have been the 90s. And he spoke about, I think it was his book, and he spoke about, imagine a realm, a dimension with just 2 dimensions, where everything was perfectly flat. How would something that is 2-dimensional, how would a living thing that's 2-dimensional eat, right? Because it has to have an entrance and an exit, an entrance for the food and an exit for the waste. Surely that would divide the being into 2 pieces. So does the second dimension exist? I feel like it likely does, but my sense is that it's a lower vibration of the third dimension, and it's not that it lacks the it will lack some aspects of the third dimension. Anyway, enough about the second dimension. I need to feel into that separately and ask more guidance about it separately. When I started to watch a lot about UFOs and ghosts, I started to hear a bit more about the fourth dimension, and I'd hear things like, or interdimensional travel, and we might even consider things like, Star Wars and Star Trek, like warp drive and hyperdrives and things, like they are a kind of, a version of that, where you can kind of jump through wormholes, or there's this thing called like hyperspace that you can go into, which is like a different a whole different realm, if you like. And so some of those concepts I was familiar with, and it wasn't until, my guess is around 2018. It might have happened in 2017, but I think in 2018 I went through a brief phase of being interested in the Mandela effect, and I came across the amazing YouTuber Shane Robinson, which is the Unbiased Non-Defense channel. And there was a lot of talk about the shift, and that the world is going to shift between realities or dimensions. And in fact, many, the term "the shift" was also not like it was by no means a constraining definition. It was definitely connected to significant change on Earth, but nothing really obvious other than that about, nothing that tells you exactly what it is. And I remember around 2018, 2019, there was talk of, when this might happen, and a bit about how it might happen. People having dreams. I remember some people having dreams or, quantum hypnosis sessions, and in those sessions they would describe colors in the sky, rainbows in the sky. They would describe different experiences of reality, and that became, at very least, like the trigger for the shift. There was also at the time a lot of interest in various government agencies building underground bunkers, and even movies that seemed to describe some activity like solar flare activity, etc., and that it would be safer underground. And I also remember when I used to watch Project Camelot many years ago, another YouTube channel, and it was really, at the time, I must admit, I've not watched it in years, but at the time they spoke a lot about there was various government projects, and one of them was Project Looking Glass. And if I haven't spoken about that before, it was this, like, the technologies behind it, not so sure if they're meant to be human made, or they were more it was something like an ancient artifact that had been discovered, or something that had been found to come across obtained from other extraterrestrial beings. But what was fascinating about Looking Glass was that there were attempts to try and see into the future timelines of Earth, to try and understand how best to control the people. So how to control people so that people wouldn't take back the planet for themselves. That there could still be a small number of beings or governments that can control most or all the people on the planet. And I do remember that vividly, that in that video, what was fascinating was they could not see past this event. And that was really the subject of the video, was about this. I'm still talking about the Project Camelot video. They didn't know what would happen, but it seemed to be some sort of global event, and it didn't feel like the death of a planet by any means, more like a rebirthing, and more like, today I would understand it as more like mass awakenings. And at that point, you can't easily control awakened hearts, because there's good reason for that, right? An open heart is very difficult to manipulate because open hearts are very sensitive and discerning and can understand much more easily the intention behind actions and the energy behind someone's actions. So these are really important. And I did meet up with a group of many people from Unbiased and On the Fence over in Portland, ECETI, on the west coast of the US, and that was just fascinating. It taught me a lot about there's more people than I perhaps realized that real people that are going through their awakenings, and that was back then. And now just more and more and more people are, each of us going through our own individual, unique experiences and awakenings. And that's simply wonderful to experience. I then progressed on to, I remember this concept of the fifth dimension. It just became like more popular to talk about, and one of those triggers seemed to be people having different client sessions. Now this predates just maybe a year or so just before I started, and I remember Alison Coe, shout out to Alison Coe, who's a quantum hypnosis therapist, and I remember some of her videos. She would talk about these experiences that her clients were having and how their higher selves would describe the fifth dimension. And it's a few years ago, right? It's like maybe 6 years ago now, so I'm not really sure where these different sources came from, but some of the examples really resonated with me. And one of those examples was I remember like people talking about a rainbow bridge, and the rainbow bridge features heavily in our lots of different cultures, and bridge between dimension, between realms. Even in some movies, it turns up in, like, was it A Dog's Life or Dog's Purpose? I can't remember which. I get those two movies, the sequel, mixed up, but that was they were lovely movies. And what was fascinating about, there's lots of like consistent themes between these different experiences that people would have. In the fifth dimension, it seemed that you couldn't really take much with you to it. Some people would describe in dreams or in their hypnosis sessions that they had been waiting in a queue with many other people to kind of cross over to the fifth dimension. Some people had been naked, some people had been lightly clothed, and others had gone through a rainbow bridge or gone through seen experiences like changes in the sky, different colors in the sky, etc. And so all that's really fascinating. And back then I used to believe that was the future, right? That these were premonitions of the future. And now I understand more that time does not run linear, and especially between dimensions. You don't just go to sleep on Monday in the third dimension and wake up on Tuesday in the fifth dimension, and that on the Tuesday the fifth dimension is created. It's more like the fifth dimension already exists. It's just you're stepping up into it. You're raising your frequency, your vibration up into it. And I remember writing this song called Welcome to the fifth dimension. We've been waiting for you. That was wonderful to create that song, and it was a beautiful channeled message. What I loved about it was that some songs I write, I recognize as a future echo, or like a future. They are a future memory. I remember them from my future. So I've heard them, and that song. I also remember another song that's just come to me as well, called "Welcome to this new space where you can achieve anything." And those songs I heard played in the fifth dimension. Something just fell over in the van. Yeah, these were like played on speakers, like echoing outside, and I could hear them echoing in the fifth dimension. And it wasn't just me that was listening to them; it was many others. And that filled me with a lot of joy. I really love this, like co-creating with the future. And that also, those experiences began to give me like a point of reference. And sorry if my speaking slows down a little bit. It's just because I'm listening to the GPS instructions, which slow me down a bit. Here's a really cool extendable caravan or trailer, so it looks like we'll catch a glimpse of it on the side there. And what it does is the roof extends up so you can stand up inside it, which is very cool. It's like a mini Binnie train. And I remember chatting with one of my neighbors. So I'm walking home from the train from a long day at Amazon, and he's telling me how he heard my song "Welcome to the Fifth Dimension" on the radio. Sorry, on YouTube. And he said, "There's just, John," he said, "there's just something about that song." He says, "I recognize it. Like I totally recognize that song." And I was like, "Wow, that's cool." And he did not strike me like he would be into my music at all. I wasn't really sure if he followed me on Facebook at the time or not. And what was really powerful about his experience was that it was it was definitely a reflection of my experiences as well. There was these resonating themes of you can hear it. You can hear it coming from the future into the past. And there's all good reason for this, right? For me, this feels like, I describe that feeling as like a bleeding of energy, like an overlapping of energy, overspilling from this loving fifth dimension into this third dimension. Like it was played in the heavens, in the sky, and then gradually comes back to this dimension also. Which totally fascinates me, because I wonder which dimension created it first. And maybe it's a co-creation across lots of different dimensions. I don't know. And I'm hoping that my heart can be nice and open, and I can remember all these beautiful experiences of the fifth dimension to share with you, because they're so precious to me, and I'd hate to miss out on any. So as the journey continued, and I'm meditating each day, I would start to get through, this must be through 2019, 2020, I would start to receive more Hi It's John videos. Now I'm not sure exactly when I started the Hi, It's John videos, because the timeline is that something like 2017, 2018, and then into the very start, I think it was like February 2019, I started doing songs almost every day. Well, yeah, I did do them. I just started doing them for years, every day. So that was very cool. And the messages that came through always felt very expansive. And when I look back on the journey of my daily meditations and the messages that come through in my Hi, It's John daily videos, Hi, it's John, is that I was, and still are, being prepared. You know, these like little bite-sized messages, these expansive messages are shared each day to help me be able to expand my heart, to expand my mind. You know, if my mind didn't keep up, I would just find it very difficult to explain to you in any terms what the fifth dimension is, other than a feeling. And my heart would describe this feeling of the fifth dimension as very light and bright and very loving and joyful and very colourful, and almost like taking the third dimension, taking a photo or a video of the third dimension and then just ramping up the gain, you know, so that everything gets brighter and lighter and gets even more beautiful. And that's the same, it's because this effect of the emotions rising up, this happiness, this joy. And that really, really excites me. And as I began to do client sessions, I started to experience the fifth dimension more and more. In fact, it wasn't that long, maybe just 2 or 3 months into that journey of doing client sessions, and we're now into 2020, 2021, 2022, that I was doing sessions like I do now as my day job. Back then I was full-time at Amazon, and I was doing probably a session on a Sunday night and then one on a Wednesday night. Just a little bit of juttering, is that the right word? On the road. I don't think it's the van, I think it's the road. We'll keep an eye on it. So yeah, that was even more expansive for me, because then as I started to do client sessions, as I still to this day, and this varies from client to client, but I take the lead on the experience of a session, and I must admit, it was only very recently that I realized why I take the lead and why I don't just rely on the client to experience it all themselves, like in a traditional hypnosis session. Maybe in part because I don't employ hypnosis or not intentionally. But what began to happen in my experience of the clients is that I begin to see, in particular, their superpowers and activations of their chakras, of their body, of their energetic fields, capabilities from learnt by their souls, learnt over many lifetimes, that they were practicing this, getting ready for these activations in this third dimension, so that they could do things like, and everyone, has a different purpose and different, unique purpose and unique mission, that people are developing their gifts, their superpowers, to be able to help others, to heal them, to teach them, to activate them, to open their hearts, to work with people, to counsel people, to, the list just goes on and on and on. And that was just so wonderful and very, very inspiring. And even people that have specific jobs to come back to the third dimension to help people who have already chosen the fifth dimension but aren't sure how to get there, to help work with their souls and their higher self and their body, to help them, raise the vibrations and come up to the fifth dimension. So that's really cool, right? So I keep hearing no soul left behind. And I remember initially I was always under the impression that this is like a global event that would happen for everyone at the same time. And now I don't feel like that. I feel that it's more likely that the triggers will be, large scale and or global events, but the actual stepping into the fifth dimension is much more of a unique journey and therefore somewhat gradual. But there are many of us that are, and if you think my journey is fast or slow, it's just unique, right? Like my awakening in 2017 was all divinely timed. I've met people that have been awakened since they were born. People that have been through awakenings in just a few years before me. And one thing I would say is that, the acceleration in speaking of accelerations, that car drives out in front. The acceleration is incredible, truly incredible, of these awakenings. And one really stark example of that is TikTok. It doesn't take you long to see that in the with TikTok's demographic being on the younger, especially popular in the younger generations, that they are sharing more language, more experiences, more concepts with each other and the world that are much more of an awakened type nature. And I still find it hard to use the terms awakening and awakened, because there's no division between us, right? We're all our own unique stages and journeys. This is not an exclusive club you get to join after specific things happen in your life, right? It's a choice, and interestingly, it's a choice by your soul. Your soul chooses to the timing or the energy or the event. And I also remember, this is coming into about 2020, 2021, having dreams with, of friends. And I say of friends because it was often with friends. And I've been messaging friends, often in the US, and we'd be saying, "Oh, did you have that dream last night?" It's like, "Yeah, so did I." And we would remember having dreams of working together, of doing things like clearing up the fourth dimension. Because you might be asking, where did the fourth dimension go, John? Surely there's more to this than just the third dimension. And what was so fascinating about the fourth dimension is it seems to need more and more, or it did, need more at that time, more and more help, like clearing up a lot of dark, low vibration, negative energies that had turned up to cause disruption. And sometimes I find it easier to describe the fourth dimension as like 3.5, like the three and a half dimension, because it's so tightly linked with the third dimension. And you can describe it like an energy-only version of the fourth dimension. Hence why that's where a lot of ghosts reside there, demonic entities. And it's like it when I see it and experience it, and both my ears are ringing quite loud now, is it reminds me a lot of the visuals and the experiences in the series Stranger Things. And that was so fascinating, because Stranger Things had the upside down, and the upside down was like this, alternative, like dark dimension, and yet it had like a representation of the third dimension within it. And in the later series, they even like learn how to bridge between them. And around that time, I was also having experiences with ghosts, apparitions, shadow figures, often in my morning runs, because it's very quiet at that time of day. And my third eye was going through awakenings. And what I saw was, if you've ever seen a shadow figure, full stop, and then if you've ever seen them in the corner of your eye, maybe if you passed them by close, or maybe you've seen one or many, like I have, like pass in front of you, it is the funniest conscious experience, like the strangest conscious experience, because they're so dark. Like a shadow figure is so dark that it is like you're looking through reality itself, and you, because you are, like, you're looking through the third dimension into a shadow into the fourth dimension. And that's fabulous, right? Like it feels wonderful that you can see through almost like a hole in the third dimension. And I really love that. I love that that's the way dimensions work. And I also remember around the time reading about some of the technologies that governments were patenting about. They're patenting about the like UFOs, or anti-gravity craft, or trying to understand how anti-gravity craft could work. And I remember reading some of those, and I mean, you're just reading like one or two pages on the internet or in a YouTube video, and it was fascinating because they seem to be almost like a shadow, like projected, like a projection from one dimension into another. And the fourth dimension seems to be almost an absence of energy from the third dimension, and that blows my mind, because when I saw those UFO kind of the patents and the concepts, it totally aligned with my understanding of what I saw with shadow figures. And one shadow figure in particular, I didn't really explain which experience it was, but one in particular was very powerful for me, and that was a 5 a.m. morning run. It must have been just the turn of, I don't know if it was springtime or autumn time, I'm not sure which, but I think it was getting lighter in the mornings. And I remember seeing a shadow figure, quite tall, and was hovering above the ground, and it moved quite fast across the road in front of me, and not very far away from me. I would say 20 meters or less, maybe 15 meters. And it was heading towards a standing stone. It was going from west to east, and it was light enough outside for it, for there not to be. There's no street lights out in the countryside. There was a field either side, like big open fields either side. There was no way that it was some sort of trick of the light, and it felt conscious. You know how you just have a feeling for something, a bit like if someone is like, has a puppet, and they're an amazing puppet master, and they're like bringing a puppet to life, and yet you can kind of tell that it's either like a projection of the puppet master's consciousness, or it's simply not alive. It just kind of looks cool. This for me felt very, very real, and like it. I am sure it had an awareness of me, but had more important things to do than pay any attention to me. And it was, as Native Americans sometimes describe this concept of like it was traveling on the wind. It had learned to travel on the wind, which is fascinating because that is the dominant wind direction where I live, from west to east. I'm just turning off the road here. Well, that was a lot of fun to experience that, and I just remember this, like the depth, this deep, dark entity as it travelled in front of me, and I remember thinking, like that experience. And I remember clear, as clear as day, that it was such like a hole in the third dimension. Like someone had just cut out a big oval shape about the size of a tall human. And if you're interested in how I felt about the vibration of that being, it felt, I would say, fairly low vibration, but a bit like a kind of annoyed human. If you're a bit annoyed or angry, that's how it felt. So by no means, the deepest, darkest, most terrible entity in the world. Like it's just below average on the spectrum of vibrations of those on Earth at the time. At that time, anyway. And when the lockdowns occurred, now they are still a fascinating aspect of our history, right? And I hope to never experience that again in the future. What was so fascinating about the lockdowns was that they felt like an attempt to divide us and put us in fear and make us fear each other. But what quickly started happening was we began to get closer. Not all of us, right? But many of us got closer to our loved ones. My family did, for sure. Like we got super tight and super close. We formed strong bonds then that feel like they will just last an eternity. And I remember during that time, doing a lot of things like doing upgrades to our camper van so that I could go off grid longer and all kinds of things. I need to go a bit faster. I also need to change lane. So during that time, let me just pick up a bit so I can. This guy let me pass because I really don't want to go up Sterling. Yay. It's a lot of fun driving across all these lanes while you're chatting. To be honest, it doesn't matter if I'm chatting or not. It's still tricky for me. So yeah, I had a lot of fun on this journey of, well, I still do, like starting to understand a bit more about dimensions. I also started to realize that the fourth dimension, like my guides no one seemed to really talking much about the fourth dimension, and it didn't really seem like home or a future home for many of us. And that seemed really fascinating in itself. It's like, oh, okay, so I wonder why that is. And when we think about the lockdowns, one way of trying, it's always like it's a play for fear, right? Because if you can keep humans, or as many humans as you can, in fear, it's almost like you're trying to help them stay in the third dimension, stay in low vibration, because fear closes up our chakras, it closes up our hearts, and it stops us from truly experiencing this world. Right? We're too busy drawn into our own needs, our own families, and we're super defensive when we're in fear, and we're worried about, we're in a kind of fight or flight mode. We have high anxiety, high stress, and you could describe a lot of us around this world at this time are experiencing those emotions, right? That there is definitely a successful element to those programs of fear. I'm not going to go into detail on this next subject, but just to help introduce it as well. For many years, I've had this knowing that there are small groups of humans, and I know they're also influenced by much more powerful lower vibration entities, but these are small, like elite, extremely rich population of the earth, and what is it the saying is that 1% of the population holds 99% of the wealth, and it's true. And these the people that represent this small group, and whether you call it like the elites, the cabal, the Illuminati, there's different family names that are associated with these groups as well. The names don't matter as much as the fact is the awareness that it exists. I also know that they exist because they contact me and they ask me, often using very cryptic language, and they always seem to be asking for me to consent to something. Really often the conversations start with, "Can I ask you a question?" So you're consenting to your first consent, and then it continues. So these are the kind of early stages of starting to get an understanding of who's really in charge in this world. And it is certainly not the very vocal and seemingly dominant world leaders, right? But they're not the people in charge. They may have some control and some scope, but there is a puppet master for each of them. And even if, for example, one of the world leaders is told to just, make a mess, or just told do whatever you want, right? Or do whatever you want, but not this. Like, these are all forms of control. And I'm at peace with these concepts now, because I don't tolerate the propagation of fear mongering across this world from anyone, whether they're some form of elites, whether they're a world leader, whether they're a government, whether it was one of my family or friends or loved one. You know, I do not tolerate I do not accept, it is not acceptable behavior to propagate fear against others, and I do not, I would not want to be, part of that, whether it's giving or receiving, or both. And so when we talk a bit more about the opposite, and this resonates, with some of these other experiences I was talking about, like Project Looking Glass, the experiences of my personal experiences of the fifth dimension, and I will come back to that one, not where I saw the fifth dimension very, very clearly in a very waking, sober moment. Is that this fifth dimension is a choice, and we all get to choose whether we step into this higher vibration frequency range of Earth. It already exists. It is physical, but it's a different type of physicality, where energy and matter are far more intertwined, and it's almost like, many people may see the third dimension as physical things with energy kind of flowing in between the atoms, if you like, and that's kind of one view of like a matter first universe with energy overlaid on it. And that concept, none of these concepts are wrong, but what I feel about the fifth dimension is much more like, and the third dimension. I feel like the third dimension really is energy produced by consciousness. So, me looking at this white van in front, or it's kind of a grey white van in front, that as my consciousness seeks to perceive what is in front of me, the light of my consciousness shines across the universe, space-time, and then is reflecting back to me the sun's energy bouncing off this other consciousness, this other object, and that everything has life and has a form of consciousness, everything, including my camper van, which I call Binnie. And these are super interesting experiences, because I see, atoms being created, and atoms vibrate, right? And I feel like they don't just exist and then vibrate at a specific frequency. It's more that the frequency itself creates the matter. And there's loads of different kind of theories of the universe. I think wave theory is one of them, like everything's a wave. But I don't have all the answers, right? I just know that how the universe feels for me. And I know that, there are some quantum physics and modern physics that are starting to catch up with some of these concepts and starting to understand more and more about it. Okay, so when we also feel into when we feel more about what's going on Earth at this time, and we begin to see the third dimensional Earth, it's very difficult for us, right, to lose a version of our home. That's what it feels like, right? When when you can see the third dimensional Earth being destroyed by people, by leaders, it hurts, right? You're like, but this is my home, these are my loved ones, these are my people, this is my town, my country, my planet. I don't want to see anyone suffering unnecessarily. And yet we are living and breathing in the throes of these decisions. People are making their decisions. They're deciding which vibration they want to live in. And what's fascinating is, our governments they typically have a winner and a loser, right? And you do get, when you have like a group of different political parties coming together, a coalition, that's right, coalition governments. What's really happening with the third and fifth dimension choices that we all get to make is that these are two planets that you can choose from, and the fifth dimension is overlaid on top of the third dimension. And if you had a ladder, and every time you stepped on that ladder, it raised up your emotion, you felt happier. So you went from medium happy, like everyday happy with a bit of a smile, to feeling a bit more joy, to I'm feeling quite a lot more joy, I feel really quite excited, and then starting to step up into, wow, I feel like I might be stepping into higher aspects of love and unconditional love. And then I keep stepping up and I go up into unity. And then, like, as you get higher and higher in these frequencies, you're stepping up more and more into the fifth dimension. You can Google and read other people's other people's ideas about, they'll document or channel and document these different frequencies of people's emotions, and then how they map onto different dimensions. And these may be wrong or right. I can't vouch them or not, but I know consistently with my guides, they talk to me about these upper end of, the upper end of our awareness of emotions is where the third dimension allows our awareness to go up to, and then we can reach up beyond that. So when I talk of things like the upper end of, like, it's quite fascinating. It's telling me to turn off. I think I'm going to go straight on and head towards Dundee, which is where I'm going. But I think what they try and do is make you go past Dunfermline, which you don't really get. So I'm just going to straight road up to Dundee. I say a straight road, it's like kind of the only road that runs up this way. And in client sessions, so you might be watching this video thinking, wow, we're like 53 minutes in and I still don't really know what the fifth dimension feels like. Well, let's take this example of what we're doing at the moment. If this was the fifth dimension, my feeling is, first of all, that everything would be brighter and more vivid. So like you're turning up the brightness, contrast, and saturation of all the colors. And like your vision is stepping up more into ultraviolet, like it's a higher frequency range of light. And do you ever get this, like when you stare at some flowers, you can, like bees see flowers in a different, they can see ultraviolet, right? And supposedly humans can't. And that's what I see when I'm looking at these flowers. I see like much higher vibrations, higher frequencies, more brightness and color, and that really excites me. It makes me feel like, ooh, this is quite fascinating. And then I also enjoy in the fifth dimension experiences, like the sky always seems so blue, so bright. I see these really wonderful, clouds and colors. There's far more movement and what feels like more consciousness in everything, including the clouds. And then on the ground, like the grass, the trees, the birds, the bees, the animals, the rocks, the ground itself, everything seems to be in communion. It is talking and singing. I often use the word orchestra. It's like an energetic orchestra, but they are literally also singing to each other. And the same with the wind, and everything's interacting with each other. And you feel this yourself, in particular when you're in a forest, and you're spending some time in nature and time in the forest with nature together. It was important for some reason that I use that word together. Is that you just feel like, I feel like we're all one. Like I'm just as much as part of nature as the nature that it's experiencing itself, and I am part of nature, part of the source of love that co-created this within each of us, that we all create this reality together and we're all part of it. And I love terms like, returning to nature, or rewilding, or wilding. You're just being wild, like whatever you're doing. These are just wonderful experiences to be able to connect into nature, to come back into nature. And that, I really love that. I would also describe phenomena that don't exist in the third dimension because it's too heavy to support it. So it's a bit like describing like fifth dimensional features. Like you get an upgrade from the third to fifth dimension, and here are the different features. And some of those include, one place I take clients to, and I've also done some of my premium videos allow you to do this, the premium meditations, is we go in an ascension elevator. We raise our vibrations up, and then we go to the fifth dimension. We often access a place in Scotland, in central Scotland, in a glen, or meadow as it might be known in other places of the world. And there we enter this water that is this silvery, crystalline, healing water. And when we step into it, it's there to help us heal. Now that doesn't exist in the third dimension. And it's like its consciousness, its density as well is too light for the heaviness of the third dimension. And I feel like if it came down to third dimension, it would kind of like collapse in its structure, its form, and it would just kind of be like a bit of a silvery grey, like Mercury or something, like on the ground. But it would just go very flat, very fast. But when it experiences the fifth dimension, it's like almost like a floating, flowing mix between like liquid and fog, but it can also flow through your clothes without getting you wet, and flow through your body, which I really love. And I really love doing that with clients. It's wonderful. There's also the ability to fly. Did I mention you can fly in the fifth dimension? And you can manipulate matter much more easily. And it reminds me a lot of these experiences of ancient structures, including Pumu Punku, and because the rocks there, the stonework there is so incredible. It's like it's stones made of marshmallow. And similar with how on earth did they create the pyramids of Giza. And these are things that are much easier to be able to manipulate matter through your energy, through your intention. Like you can mold the fabric of reality with your mind and with your heart, with your energy. And that's wonderful, right? So what might seem like, I don't know, a mix of like some sort of energy work or Reiki and meditations and affirmations and hypnosis and intentions, like these sorts of things, that some of the themes that exist in my client sessions, in the fifth dimension, it is absolutely real, and it is more real than the third dimension. The third dimension is more like a kind of crusty, like the crust of the edge of a loaf of bread, and that the fifth dimension is the beautiful light, soft parts of the inside of the bread, and that feels really wonderful to have an awareness of. And those experiences I described, not long after my awakening, I saw the fifth dimension out the window of my kitchen. I saw the tree, a copper birch tree that was down at the end of my garden. It wasn't a huge back garden, but it was beautiful. And just for a few moments, I'm not sure how long, I think somewhere in the region of 15, maybe as long as 30 seconds in 3D time, is how long I experienced the fifth dimension. The birds were singing to the tree, and the tree was singing back to the birds. Everything was super bright and super colourful. Everything felt in harmony, in balance, and a lot of joy and excitement and love. And fascinatingly, they weren't super interested in me. I didn't fully feel part of it, but the feelings I had in me were profound. They felt very joyous and very loving and very exciting. And I also felt like I was experiencing something very new, something for a purpose and reason. Like I was being shown this to better understand like what was going on in my world, in my reality, that is an important message. And often we're shown these visions, these experiences. There's far more than just seeing. Like the feeling was so strong and profound that it just felt truly wonderful. And I love that. I'm so grateful that I had that experience, because all of these individual experiences help me create like a belief system, a mental model. And every time something so powerful like that happens, including seeing one of the Galactic Federation ships, Athena, with my own two eyes. Like these big, powerful experiences teach me that there is joy and love and magic beyond our comprehension. There is a world that exists in a heaven-like state that is absolutely tangible and real. And every time I get a glimpse of it, it feels more and more real to me. And we're now just over an hour, and I'm not sure when I'll have internet to upload this. I'm recording it on Saturday, my drive to Dundee. I'm not sure if it'll cut out at some point, or it might have already separated into two videos, which will make some editing challenges. But what I would say is that some of the other things that help me understand my experiences and relationship with the fifth dimension is understanding how do we traverse into it through it and potentially beyond it. Like, what about into the 6th dimension? Because I've met spirit guides from clients that are as high as the 12th dimension. I've interacted with Source at far higher dimensions than 12th. And all of these experiences are important and real, and it's important to acknowledge. And just before I start talking a little bit more about my futures, is that when your heart, at the moment, when you ask your heart, interestingly, the GPS is still trying to get me to come off the road. Yeah, if you ask your heart, is this real? So if you ask your heart, is the 5th dimension real to me? It's quite likely that you may get a no. And why would that be? Why does it feel like sometimes a bunch of words, right? And it's quite simple. To be able to, I feel a good way of consciously comprehending this universe is that you need to believe in it to be able to experience it. Okay? So that means you need to be open enough. Your heart and your mind need to be open up enough to be able to receive a broader frequency range. So if you're closed in fear, just like a rose petal, a rosebud is completely closed, you're not going to receive much sunlight, right? You're not going to receive those high vibe, 5th dimensional, high frequency energies. But if you relax and open up your heart, your rose flower, you expand this ability, this beautiful ability to be able to receive these broader frequency ranges. And if your heart is open, then with an open heart you can ask the question, you know, is the 5th dimension real for me? Can I access the 5th dimension? Can I co-create the 5th dimension? I'm just listening to the GPS. It's still getting me to leave this road. I think it's trying to save me. Maybe drive into Dundee from the west, and then from the west head south back to. You go south by about 10 minutes, and I really don't think it's that much of a problem, because my camper van loves being on these flat roads. So heading off to go on the little country roads takes more time and more fuel, but Google doesn't know that, and that's Google that's chatting in my ear. Beautiful big mountains over to the right of me here. Okay, so and this is something that people also, a lot of my clients find hard with talking to spirit guides, is that they're not real in the 3rd dimension. Like they're just not here, right? They're not right now. And when they do visit us, to come down into the 5th dimension, they need to be like, you know, dense, right? Have you ever wondered why? Why are the grey aliens, for example, or Zeta aliens, or extraterrestrials, as I prefer to call them, galactic brothers and sisters, why is it often these, like, certain beings that seem more popular than others in our folklore, in our like contacts and experiences? And it's because some of these races are of a closer vibration to us. So it's easier for them to come and see us, right? And I remember early on I used to think, oh, is it a bit like, for a spirit guide to come and chat with me, is it kind of like they need to drink a load of beer and then like head down the pub and like get a leery and a low vibration and want to fight half the time? It's like, is that what they have to do to come down to my frequency to talk to me? And it's funny, they're laughing away, saying that they remember me having those thoughts, but they're saying no, it's not quite like that. But they do need an ability to reach down as low as they can, and the higher vibration I get, the easier they find it, because they can like, as I raise up 1 hertz of frequency, they can rise up 1 hertz of frequency. And so whilst the gap feels like it's narrowed between us, it's almost like my consciousness has this much broader capability of being able to reach them, if that makes sense. Like I feel like my heart and my consciousness can reach and contact my guides far more easily across broader frequency ranges now. Just beautiful here, isn't it? Yeah, this area is called like the gateway to the Highlands, and that's very much what it feels like. Okay, so let's talk about some of my futures. So it's been a little while now. It's been over a year, about a year and a half, since I had a couple of these readings, and I also had experiences and dreams, and also interestingly in client sessions, it's not uncommon for me to meet like a future of me, and we're very different. Like, it's not like one of these paradoxes where there's a name for it, right? Where someone's name paradox, where if you saw yourself in a different time, that somehow you'd influence each other and you both be destroyed, or whatever. It would definitely be like a significant impact on each other. For me, it feels quite different. It's like I am experiencing a different incarnation of me, and that's really cool, right? And a really fascinating, like, the big concepts to like get my head around, my heart around first, is that our getting quite cold actually, is that our bodies and our lifespans are changing as we speak, beyond our current understanding. For example, people living longer, much longer. And there are, there's theories, and maybe you could describe them as conspiracy theories, but there are theories that people have lived a lot longer. Like, 180 years, or 200 years, or 250 years. And what we'll see more and more, because this is what I see in my future lives, is that the gap between dimensions narrows, and so the gap between where we are in the third dimension, so if I'm feeling right now very happy and high vibration up in the top of the third dimension, I'm much closer to the fourth. That's where ghosts exist, right? So what happens when I die? It becomes much more subtle. That shift from third into fourth dimension becomes really, really subtle. And you could literally be on the very edge. Don't ask me the exact frequency range of the third dimension, but let's imagine, it's at a specific number, any number, you imagine it, a number of hertz, and that one more hertz above that is in the fourth dimension. If you felt just a little bit more joy in the third dimension when you went to sleep one night, and then you woke up like overnight you woke up, it's like you'd died, right? It's like in the third dimension, you would no longer exist. People could no longer see you or feel you. And that you would be in the fourth dimension. That's really cool, isn't it? Well, maybe not so cool for people that wanted to see you around in the third dimension, but you had ascended. You'd gone up to at very least the fourth dimension. Now, you may or may not want to stick around in the fourth dimension, and you might want to keep going. And so you might work on that happiness, maybe fly around a bit if you can, do some cool things, maybe help some ghosts return to source or wherever they want to go, help some people, other people get up to the fifth dimension too, like whatever it is you chose to do. And then you would, go through the same like crossing over, like there'd be a kind of blend. It's really funny. My guides are saying, John, just like your voice. I was like, oh, you really want me to try and make this with my voice? I don't know, after speaking for an hour and 15 minutes that my singing voice is up to this. I can try. Apparently it's going to be helpful for at least one of you that watched this. And you deserve a gold star if you've made it to 1 hour and 16 minutes in this video. So let's say the third dimension is what is called like full voice or like full like chest voice, like ha, right? So it's just my talking voice but higher. But you know that higher voice when you talk like this, the falsetto, it can feel like the range of the third dimension is like the range of the like that full head voice. Sorry if this is loud in your headphones or however you're listening to this, maybe on your TV. And then imagine then going up. If it was like a death of like the existence of the voice of the note in the third dimension, which is the head voice, and then a jump up, you'd sound much more like Tarzan or like a teenager, right? It would go like up down, like fifth dimension, third dimension, fifth dimension, third dimension. Excuse me, sir. Would you like fries with that? Like one of the Simpsons characters. So these are, very different experiences, right? However, what could be more smoother, right, would be, I don't know if my singing voice is up to this, but imagine there's many singers, famous ones, including Freddie Mercury was incredibly gifted at this, at like reaching up to these high frequency falsetto notes in a nice, clear, smooth bridge. So shall I try it? let me have a little drink first. And I'll probably have to put a little bit of distortion on it, a little bit of masking on it. So let's try it. It might take some attempts to get the idea. Or anyway, you get the idea. Like being much smoother, a transition instead of like. And I don't know, they're both fun, right? Neither are better than the others, but that smooth transition up, that up into the fifth dimension is what I see when I visit my future. I see this beautiful transition of me raising up in vibration, and my body changes fascinatingly, right? Like it transforms each time, and it never fully dies. I remember something my son said to me when he was learning about this at school, was that this really fascinating experience, I can't remember, it's like by a certain age, is it like 12 years old or something? I can't remember, it's quite young, that your whole body has completely replaced itself. Or maybe it's 25, that's a big difference, right? But at some point, when you're before 30, every single cell in your body has died, and you have replenished yourself completely. Like there is literally, you could gather up all those dead cells and make, if you're able to bring them back to life, you can make that old version of you again, because they're all your dead cells. All your dead skin, your bones, everything. That is fascinating, right? And that's how it also feels with the fifth dimension ascension. Some people will describe, and they'll show you videos and photos of, they might call it like crystalline upgrades, crystalline DNA upgrades, if you're familiar with this term. And this means, it's beautiful here. This is Canoe Hill. And I kind of get the idea of why the GPS sent me this way. It is a little bit longer, by about 10 minutes, but anyway, this is the way it sends me home often. Super fascinating that the crystalline, if you see someone with crystalline, I'm just looking at my hands just now, when they'll show you like a video of their skin, and they'll be like having the sunshine like this, and they'll be showing you like these little speckles, almost like crystals on their skin. And this is, their skin going through a crystalline upgrade. And crystalline is like a liquid crystal display that we're used to our LCD screens, except it's not in a technology outside of you, it is you. And you might hear me talking a lot about DNA upgrades and our junk DNA, like these, so that's what our modern scientists would think, that these are parts of us that are just kind of left over, not doing anything because they don't understand them. So it's just known as junk DNA. But it feels like it is DNA that we have brought in from other lifetimes into our body. I don't know if any analysis has been done on junk DNA to see if it's diverse between different, or how diverse it is between different humans. And just by what would be fascinating is like between different families, because often soul tribes will kind of center around, not exclusively, but will center around the same family groupings. I don't mean the same family name, that can change. I know my family names have changed significantly through past lives. But if you take a snapshot of the Earth just now, do I, for example, have similar junk DNA to my mother, father, my son and daughter, and so on, and my wife for that matter? I know that we've reincarnated before together. So these are really fascinating upgrades, and I feel that to help with that smooth, or should I say, that wasn't so smooth, but that smooth upgrade into these higher dimensions, higher vibrations, is a lot about our bodies preparing themselves to support the upgrades. And if you think about it, what do you need to do when you're upgrading your phone or any like electronic device? There's always this warning at the start, and it says, please plug in your device to ensure it has full power. And there's good reason, is because if the upgrade is halfway through copying all the operating system files and the power's lost, it can totally ruin the operating system of the device and make the device unrecoverable. Depending on the device, some can roll back from failed upgrades. So that's really fascinating. When I say that's really fascinating, I'm like, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, upgrades. So why are we going through so much? And for example, I can barely tolerate now refined sugars. Like if I try and have a biscuit, a chocolate bar, I mean, it's a bit miserable, right? But because I don't drink alcohol, I don't eat meat, and well, I eat fish. That's a type of meat, right? But I don't eat cows or pigs or chickens. And because when I eat like cake or biscuits, cookies, etc., the amount of sugar that's in it causes what I like irritable bowel syndrome, like irritation in my my digestive system. Now, I'm not a doctor. I can't vouch for you and your experiences, and I can't tell you that you should or shouldn't give up or change your diet. But what I would say is be really consciously aware of your diet, because your diet is the fuel for creating, it's powering this upgrade, right? And when your body says, no, I can't do this anymore, it means it's not because you're getting worse, it's because you're getting better, and because you're better, you're less better by higher vibration. You're not sick, you're better. And when you're better, you can, I think better's the wrong word, it just feels like better than other people. I don't think that's true. You're healthier, let's say. When you're healthier, you have less tolerance to the lower vibration stuff. Just like in those high frequency ranges, I can't go very low. Yeah, you can't go very low in the high frequency ranges. So, yeah, that resonates with me. It explains why, I couldn't really tolerate alcohol. And it's like as soon as you stop, I do resonate with this vision of this visualization, this metaphor of a hot air balloon. You fill it full of less density, like you release its density, this big balloon, and then what's holding it down are the basket with the people in it, and then they have these like sandbags, and then what you do is you release the sand or sandbags, and it releases weight, and you rise up. Now that's really cool, isn't it? What a wonderful thing to do. And as you rise up, you're rising up in higher frequency. And if you were to try and take on another sandbag again, or more sandbags, it would start to pull you down, and you would feel heavier again. So our bodies, who when we're not listening to them, like I'm not always listening to my body perfectly, but I'm getting better at communicating with my body, is that our bodies will resort to pain as a form of communication. And it doesn't mean that there's anything actually wrong with your body. It's like a user error, right? It's like your consciousness, your brain is the user of this beautiful technology, your human body, and your body's saying, like, no, stop it, stop eating, John, stop eating refined sugars. Like you can't do it. It is not compatible with John 2.0, right? It is not backwardly compatible. We cannot go back to consuming those things. Just like if I tried to drink alcohol now, like I do, it's true, it does scare me. And there's been many times I thought, oh, I could just have one beer. Like, I don't know what my body would do, and I think it would be highly triggering for me. And I just don't ever see it. Like, it's not going to be a conscious intention of mine to have alcohol touch my lips again in this life. And there are other really interesting aspects, like coffee. What else? Dairy products. These are things that other people in their full-time psychics or contactees or people that are committed to their health and constantly improving themselves, that they've given up these other things, and that would be really hard for me. I think I might buy a cow or a goat, maybe it's like a goat's cheese or something. Like I'm not against animal products, especially if they can be done more humanely. And I feel like I've just got to draw a line. Like becoming vegan, for example, I think right now in my life would be a step too far. Certainly around my family, around my wife and family. If they were all vegan, maybe I would do it, but I don't know. Maybe I'd do it because it'd be easier for cooking and going for meals and restaurants and things. But yeah, that's definitely something for me to reflect on for the future. Same with fish. I don't really have a plan to give that up, but I do know that some of these things do affect my vibration, right? It's not just that, it's like energies and everything. So it's not just animal or crustacean, fish, or any of these related it's not just any of these related products. Just like this car ride. It's more knowing that there's a frequency and vibration of everything you purchase, that you consume, and so you get to consciously choose what that is, right? It's simple. So here we are, an hour and 30 minutes, and I've been talking a lot about ascending. Yeah, I do. When I see myself, I actually saw it a couple of days ago, maybe 3 days ago, looking in the mirror, saw a future version of me. This was a higher, like you describe it right now as my higher self. I do feel that and know that our higher selves are the highest frequency aspect of our consciousness combined with this human form in this lifetime. Isn't that cool? So it's a goal, right? It's like you could say, I want to become my higher self, and I absolutely feel like that. Like when I left my corporate job and I took that was a big vibrational leap for me. You get it for free. That just felt so good and so exciting. I don't know where these guys are going on their scooters, but that looks terrifying to cross these roads. And it is, like, I don't think that's necessarily a recommended crossing point, but these dual carriageways, they have vehicles drive across them. Yeah, so I would describe that future version of me, and I was chatting about it with Sarah, UFO Girlie, in a recent video we did on Monday, and we were talking about, I think we were chatting afterwards about our eye colours, and what I saw is that my higher self, the higher aspects of myself, have much lighter blue eyes, and at the moment, like I'm sure my eyes used to be brown, or there was maybe always a bit of a mix, sometimes maybe green, and now they're like a brown with, blue with brown in the middle, and that's fascinating. And I think it's I'm just checking just now, it feels like a journey towards blue eyes. I never expected that, and I guess it's a thing that people's eyes can change color, and maybe that's because it's like a reflection of the eyes are a window to the soul, right? Yeah, that's super cool, super fascinating, and I love that we can experience these things in our lives so powerfully, so beautifully, and so profoundly, and just feel into the simplicity, right? Whilst it's taken me an hour and 35 minutes to take you on a journey of some of my experiences, or at least the ones I can remember in this moment of the fifth dimension, is that it's just wonderful simplicity, that the higher your vibration inside of you, the higher the vibration of your reality around you. And that your vibration is like how you're feeling right now is a vibration. It is a specific frequency, a range of frequencies. And the higher, happier, takes more energy to vibrate at a higher frequency. And the higher up you go, the happier you feel, the more joyous you feel. And vice versa, the more time you spend each day in your joy, doing the things you love, the more you raise up in your vibration. And isn't that beautiful and wonderful and magical? and all the things. So yeah, just encouraging you to feel into the simplicity. We heard today from my guides about how to step into the fifth dimension, and they said it's really simple. You open your heart and you reach up into your highest joy, your highest love, and then you experience that higher vibration reality. Simple. and I really love it, because whenever things get too complicated, or just complicated full stop in this world, whenever you find yourself asking, was it A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G that created H, or what are the 20 steps to my ascension? Know that this universe was not built on complex, convoluted rules. Just receiving instructions, not from my spirit guides, it's from my GPS, telling me to turn right down here. Whenever things seem complex, seek the simple, right? And your heart knows. Your heart knows, because many of our hearts have been to higher frequencies and higher dimensions. Your heart may well know. Why does it say you can't turn right here, yet the bus is turning right? I think it's because it's just a roundabout. I'll just follow this bus. Oh. That was strange. Yeah, so you can just feel into it simply and say, an open heart, happy, high vibration, joyful, open heart helps me get up into the fifth dimension. And every day, if you set yourself a goal and you said, I'm just going to work on just being a little bit more happy today, I'm going to ask my body, ask my mind, my heart, my higher self, how can I do it? What do I need to do to get there? Is it self-love I need to cultivate? The shadows I need to face? Simple task, right? Raise your vibrations. And yet, I must admit, including we often get these things really, really complicated and really difficult. And all, I think in part, many of us are resistant to some of these answers, right? Because they are really hard. Just because it's simple doesn't make it easy. It is really hard to raise your vibration. It's really hard to face some of your deepest, darkest shadows. I feel like every single time I feel the triumph of getting through one shadow, one big shadow, one big fear, and then faced with the next. And it's like every time it gets, the shadows get bigger and harder, and yet I kind of get more used to it, or at least get used to the concept that I'll always be doing it for the rest of my life, and that's okay, and that perhaps to some extent there's no rush, but at the same time, I want to keep going and making progress and keeping raising my vibration. So it's not out of a feeling of lack. And I can imagine if I created the John Binnie 900-day Talk to Your Spirit Guides meditation challenge, within which, ironically, you would have started talking to your spirit guides within about 2 weeks, but you consciously didn't accept it for 900 days until you had the epiphany one day that you thought, well, actually, maybe this is just never going to end, and that this is cool, we should just keep doing this, and that it's probably a thing now. Imagine that. It wouldn't be very popular, I suspect, and I can't really be bothered creating 900 meditations to get there, or even going into my Wix website and generating, manually creating 900 days of Talk to Your Spirit Guides. Do the same thing for 900 days until you get it, until you accept it. And yet, this is the reality for many of us. It is a discipline, a practice, consistency. That was a message that came up the other day in meditation from my guides. Consistency, to be clear, is not turning up for exactly 1 hour of meditation each day. It is not that. It is simply turning up for meditation each day. No matter how little or how much time you can invest in it, it's showing up every single day. And I never knew that was a superpower, right? I never knew that. I didn't even know there's a world record when I started writing a song each day, that there was world records for the most songs written, the most songs consecutively written each day, the most digitally released albums, which was the one I got in 2022. And I also didn't realize that it was that tenacity, that obsession, the unbreakable drive that I have, that I just keep going regardless, and some of this stubbornness and kind of bloody mindedness. It's like, I just must keep going, and I'm not really sure why, but it just feels right. I'm just going to keep going. As you do, it just feels like really, truly magical, wonderful things happen beyond my wildest dreams, and that's what happened to me, right? I didn't know that when I didn't think when I started my meditations each morning. I didn't think, oh, maybe I could do this as a full-time job. That did not occur to me. And even when I saw others doing it as a full-time job, I didn't think, oh, I could do that, right? I just remember thinking when I hit 900 days, because I was celebrating the creation of my 900th song. I was sat there in my old recording studio in my old home, and I was like, look at this. I've created 900 songs. I don't think John alone could have done that. I suspect what's happened is John has been talking to spirit guides, and the spirit guides must be real, because where else would he get all these song lyrics from and create 900 songs? And not just that, and it's still true to this day. There is, and I've done over 2,600 songs now, which means over 2,600 meditations, is that there is no feeling of it running out. Sometimes there are, messages that seem similar, or like a repeating topic that I keep coming back to that, but it does not feel in any way like it'll ever run out. and that is truly exciting, right? No one's ever asked me, oh, John, will your spirit guides ever stop talking to you? Will they ever stop giving you messages? And so, some people have asked me that about songs and said, John, do people, are you ever worried that you're going to run out of songs? And the only way I can describe it is no, because I feel like I'm never worried that I'm going to run out of here, Aaron Dundee. I'm never going to run. Listen to the GPS. I'm never going to run out of emotions. I'm never going to run out of like this constant, infinite, unique experience that we have in this human life, right? It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to wake up one morning going, that's it, all the emotions are done, we're all done now. It just feels like that's never going to happen. Instead, it's more the opposite, right? Like, it's like a continued exploration into all these different emotions and experiences, and that feels so wonderful, almost like the continued blend and broad range and variation of all these different emotions just continues, and it never stops, it never ends. It's same with my spirit guides. Like, I feel like they're not going to run out of emotions, I'm not going to run out of them. So isn't that wonderful? Tay Bridge, that's where we're going. So, yeah, I really love this continued. I go straight on, then right. Straight on, then right. So red light. Okay. It's such a funny. I'm sure this road system got a lot better. And that hotel to the left, we just passed, it's like a green building. That's where my training is tomorrow. Okay, going across the bridge. Let's do this. Yeah, and if you're curious about my albums, we're heading back across the bridge, and we're going over to the left, which is to the east, to Tayport, where I'm staying tonight, down by the sea. But yeah, if you're curious about my albums, I name the albums like 1D, 2D, 3D, and I'm currently writing my 168th album. I think, what was my world record at 110? So we're 168 now. The D means dimension, because in part when I first started, I thought I'd probably stop at maybe like 6 or 7 albums, but I just really enjoyed it, and so I just kept going. It's a bit like Ascension, right? You're saying, oh, I'll just keep going in Ascension. There's no end to it. And what's really cool is, like, there is no end to this, right? And I've seen this when I do these meditations, like when I'm teaching it, especially in class, and like in my foundational intermediate training, and I get people to come along to experience their futures. There's this saying that my future self has, which is, John, there's no limit to how much joy you can feel. And it's almost like I'm sitting there and someone comes up to me and said, hey John, good news, that's it. We are officially end to world hunger. You're like, yeah, that makes me so happy. I feel really good about that. And then, the next minute someone comes over and says, good news, John, we are officially now in our first year of full world peace. There are no wars or battles. And I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that feels really good. And like, it just keeps going. Like, the good news just gets better and better. So that's how I feel about my futures. So we're going left down here. It's certainly cooler down here, and quite quiet as well. Well, we're topping 2 hours, and a big bus that's going to kind of pull over into my lane a bit. There we go. Give it plenty of space, and a cyclist I did not want to run over. Not just one cyclist. I don't want to run over any cyclists or anyone. So what I was going to say, yeah, there's no limit to joy, and I think, isn't that just such a wonderful concept, right? Like, you can feel into that, you can believe it or not, you can explore it. It's up to you, but I think that's just a fabulous way of experiencing this reality, is saying to yourself, you know what, there's no limit. No limits. It's beautiful. You can see the Tay over to the side, and there's looks like a wee camper van's following me. I suspect it's going to exactly the same place I am, although I am going to park just outside of a campsite, which is fascinating. Well, fascinating for me. What else are you going to say about the fifth dimension? Yeah, so I hope you find this couple of hours. If you spent 2 hours with me, please let me know in the comments if you survived this whole time with me. Maybe tell me what you're doing. Tell me about your experiences of the fifth dimension. Tell me about how it feels to be listening to some of my experiences. Do they resonate with any of yours? Do you have brand new experiences? Do you have suggestions about ascension and reaching higher frequencies and higher dimensions of this earth? I didn't really talk much about how Earth is currently stretched across third, fourth, fifth, and a little bit into the sixth dimension. But do know that I can do a separate video on that. Maybe that'll be for the drive home. And that, you're not going to lose people, right? They might not hang around much in your life when you have such significantly different vibrations. In particular, you being of a higher vibration than them, you will be able to see them, but and perceive them, but they'll struggle to perceive you. And that's a really fascinating phenomenon that I still experience to this day. And when you're in a higher frequency, a higher frequency in vibration, so you're feeling good and happy inside, but people around you are, unhappy and sad. Like, it's almost like you're not there. Like their consciousness is not at a frequency where its range is, fully overlapping enough with yours, and it's a little bit like you're a ghost to them. And yet you're not a ghost. You're real flesh and blood, like you and I. We need fingers and physicality to tap on our phones, to access our YouTube videos, and to share through mechanisms like this. Although I do know that YouTube and these videos are also available on they're all, that's very kind. They're also available on Galactic Federation ships on their iPad devices as well. I love this I love this little town because the cars just take up like one lane, and so it's just a lottery whenever you. At the moment, I have the right of way because all the cars are on the other side. So people trying to come towards me should really pull into the side, but sometimes it's just not possible. So you just do your best, and yeah, it's really cool. So I just spend a lot of time just being really nice to everyone, and be nice to as many people as I can. I mean, that's a good mantra in anyone's life, right? Be nice to many people. It helps a lot. I got a little smile from her. Okay, and then, is this the right way? Yes, it is. I was kind of doing it from muscle memory since I've been down here a couple of times before. And then we go left down here. Tell you what, it is getting cold. I'm looking forward to putting on the diesel heater. Yeah, I feel like we're almost to the destination. Whilst my chat is getting a little bit dry, it feels like we must complete this cycle. We must complete this. It's funny. And yeah, if you'd asked me, this time last year I was sat in Amazon wondering how successful I would be in my new business adventures. If you'd say to me, "Oh, John, just under a year's time, you will be driving in your camper van to Dundee, and you'll be going to an Indian head massage assessment the next day, and that you'd spent 2 hours driving talking about the fifth dimension to a whole load of lovely people around the world on YouTube." And I'd be like, "Oh, that's amazing." That sounds really exciting. I did not expect that. And yeah, it is really wonderful. I was just looking over to the right, and I thought I was staring at a huge seabird, but well, kind of. I thought it was a big seabird, a swan. So let's see. There's 2 labs in the water, which is very cute. And here we are. I think there's a space at the front here. And I'm going to go in between. Well, I think there's plenty of space here. I think I should just go down the edge. I feel a bit bad about blocking people's views, but we're all sat here together. Anyway, let's try it out, suss it out and see, as they say. I don't know if I really want to be next to the bin. I don't really know why. I think I'm going to come down in between these vans, actually. And I think the reason for that as well is that we won't have cars coming down in between us. So it's going to come straight down in between. There we go. And there's some kids on a bike.